If you clicked on this video, you're probably looking for a way to deal with your art block. And trust me, I've been there. When I get into an art block, I, like most artists, just want a way to get out of that creative rut. And for me, that often means looking for less daunting projects. Projects that don't require too much forethought, which can come together without me having to study something like super intensely. And most of all, I just want a small piece that I can simply enjoy the process of creating. Something to remind me of my love of art. I found the perfect project to get me out of my creative block, and you should try it too. Put on an album with the songs playing in order. It can be any album, one that you really like and have listened to a lot, or one that you've been listening a lot to recently, or one that you haven't listened to in ages but used to love, or even just one that you've never listened to before. While you listen, just put something on a page. Drawing, painting, printing, whatever you're feeling. Don't stop until you reach the end of the album, and ideally don't carry on after it ends, unless you feel like super inspired to do so. The idea is to capture your thoughts and feelings while listening to the album. It's also necessarily time constrained, so unless it's a really long album, it shouldn't take you longer than an hour. I decided to put on an album I've been listening to a lot lately, and felt I just wanted to give myself the chance to listen to it a bit more intensively and appreciatively. Some would say it's old news by now, but I don't care. Good art has no expiry date. And I wanted to illustrate my thoughts while listening to Billie Eilish's Hit Me Hard and Soft. It's strange because I never really listened to this album a lot when it first came out, but this summer I find myself coming back to it, very often. I actually find it kind of beautiful how music can touch you in different ways just depending on the phase of life that you're in. And I honestly think this album is incredible, and my appreciation of it increases every time I listen to it. Anyway, what you're watching now is essentially a visual record of me enjoying this album once again. I started off getting very into Skinny, trying to map out some lines on the page in front of me, sort of laying the foundation for how the piece would develop. I actually think this is a good song to start on since it is a song with a distinct vibe. It's quite chill, it's not too aggressive, and it's not super demanding. I was getting super into drawing it, and then my second camera slipped to a worse angle, but I was already super locked in, so I didn't actually care enough to properly fix it. Skinny quickly melted into Lunch, at which point we can actually see the moment that the beat starts to kick in, based off my head bobs. This song is a banger, and you cannot convince me otherwise. For some reason, it made me think of sandwiches. I guess it's like a classic lunch food, although the song is definitely not about that type of lunch. But I started drawing these weird triangle things that could perhaps tangentially remind someone of sandwiches. For a British person, I think you'd expect a better representation of what could be considered a national food, but hey, it's a concept, not an exact replica. Also, let's just choose to ignore this absolute relic, which is a Dan and Phil pencil case. I think I got this as a birthday gift when I was 14. It is a part of my past that I don't like to talk about too much, so we're just gonna move on. Throughout Chihiro, I began focusing on fleshing out the piece vibe-wise, getting in there with some pen and making some bolder decisions. And by bolder decisions, I mean this chunky black rhombus, which is definitely serving the line, "Open up the door." For some reason, I thought it would look better if I had these black lines radiating out of it too, which I fear made it worse. Still not sure that that was the best decision, but I sort of fixed it later in the process, and as I said in my intro, we're here to enjoy drawing and not to have a beautiful piece of art. After Chihiro, the classic Birds of a Feather came on. I'm sure many would say that this song was that one overplayed tune when it first came out, the one you simply couldn't escape out on a trip to the shops or literally anywhere you went in public. And then it would be followed by Good Luck Babe, and you would think, damn, why do they have to overplay the good songs? Because now I'm sick of a song that I actually liked at first. Anyway, this song actually means a lot to me. Although overplayed, I now associate it with a fond memory of me and my friends screaming this song in the back of the car on a hot summer day, having all just finished our bachelor's degrees. We didn't know the lyrics very well, but we read them off Spotify and generally failed to implement them correctly. We had a great time though, and now every time I listen to this song, it's all I can think of. And I'm sure you got all this emotion from this very literal and pretty thoughtless representation of the song. By the time Wildflower came on, I realized I was working way too slowly because I was not ready to start working on a new element in the piece. And I was for some reason hyperfixated on this feather-looking thing and getting it to look right, so I worked on that for the majority of the song. But I also did begin to build up the piece a bit more holistically too. I think The Greatest might be one of my favorites off the album. I wish I had the musical knowledge to actually put into words what makes this piece great, but I fear I forgot all of the musical theory I learned at age 16 after finishing my GCSEs. There wasn't really a distinct concept that came out here, but I was feeling this song. I began shading in some areas with pencil, and then when I got impatient with how slow it is to fill in an area with pencil, I used a graphite stick to give the piece some more dimension. But just straight vibes with this one, and incredible vocals. L'amour de ma vie was also spent mostly building up the piece. I think this was also just by virtue of the fact that it's what the piece needed at the time. You know, it's all sort of well and good to keep drawing little things, but if they don't work together, then it's sort of useless to keep drawing them. So I went in with some color pencil and added some much needed color to the piece. And then for some reason, I just stood up and vibed to the song for a bit. Does it show that I did ballet at like age 4? When I tell you, it took me so long to realize that the dino was about a stalker. Like, I think I literally realized like 2 months ago. But in my defense, I hadn't listened to this album a ton before that, and I hadn't really been paying close attention to the lyrics. But I am still a bit ashamed that it took me so long, because I did also listen to the entire album when it first came out. But, you know, with this song having such a profound message, you'd think I came up with something really cool to add to this piece. You thought wrong. The last 2 songs, Bittersweet and Blue, I spent focusing on really trying to bring the piece together. Also, can we just talk about the transition between these 2 songs? Because while I was drawing, I didn't even realize the break between the 2 of them. I was actually just thinking, oh damn, the last song on this album is really long. But you know, the point is to have a fun time drawing and listening to good music, which I did. In all seriousness though, I had been getting very frustrated with art and drawing lately, and this small little project really reminded me that I like drawing, and that it is an intrinsically enjoyable process, and not just something that I get annoyed with when it isn't going my way. You know, there's no real correct outcome for this piece. It's just a matter of exploring and trying out various abstract forms and enjoying good music and enjoying creating. And of course, I can't promise that this will cure your art block, but it really helped me, and I hope it will do the same for you.